So, have you ever experienced something traumatic? If you're alive, chances are you have. We all go through things that we would rather not. But do you know biomechanically how trauma actually affects the brain? So when you experience a traumatic situation, we'll call this the event. Your entire thalamus shuts down. So in your brain, your thalamus is the part that gives you situational awareness, it gives you big picture, it gives you most of your senses except for smell. So imagine going through something really traumatic and then trying to recall it later and not having a clear picture of what happens. We get stuck in a trauma loop sometimes where we just keep replaying and replaying the event that happened. But because we don't have that clear picture, we are literally stuck inside of that traumatic event in our brain, in our minds. And the reason why we keep replaying it is because it's our brain and our body's way of trying to work through a problem. Unfortunately, that keeps us pinned in the same traumatic event. How can you get out of this traumatic event? How do you bring situational awareness back to your brain after you've experienced something traumatic? And why is this relevant to you? So, as a birth worker, I have experienced not only traumatic things in my life, in my births, but also my job can be very traumatic at times. Sometimes I witness things that are not okay. They're not things I even like to talk about publicly. They are things nonetheless that I keep and that I am witness to, that I would rather not. So think about this in my situation. If you experience something that's traumatizing surrounding your work and you have to go back to work eventually, and you keep on experiencing something that's very similar that might trigger you to think about that traumatic event, that can negatively affect what's going on in your work. That can affect me as how I am a birth participant or a birth attendant. That can affect how I am an emotional support for my clients or lack thereof. So, again, we're going to talk about bringing situational awareness back to you and triggers. What is a trigger, first of all? We hear triggers online all the time, right? People use that almost as a word or a phrase to signify that they are annoyed about something. Oh, that triggered me. That is not what a trigger is. A trigger is an actual biochemical event in the brain. A trigger is when something happens. Sometimes it's something that has nothing to do with the thing that triggered you. And you suddenly are flooded back again to that event. You are experiencing mechanically that event in your brain when this trigger happens. It's a very scary thing. That is what a trigger. If somebody messes up your coffee order at Starbucks, you are not triggered, I promise you. Stop minimalizing things that happen to people who have really traumatic experiences. Don't use the word triggered unless you really have some sort of emotional issues. That is just terrible for the rest of us. So you're going through this trigger and this event, and you're right back in it. You're right back in that trauma, and you don't have control of your body. Your thalamus again is shut down, and it's a very scary thing. So most of us, when we experience a trigger, we just shut down completely, and we avoid that trigger ever again. For some of us, this can be really detrimental. If it was me we're talking about, if I was triggered every time I walked into a hospital room to support a client, I would never be able to work and support women again. That would be terrible. For other people, maybe they're triggered by riding in a car or getting on a bus or stepping outside. You just don't know what other people are dealing with. But it is not something they can control. Again, this is an event that's going on in their body. This is a chemical thing that is happening to them. So to work through triggers by yourself, you can do something called tapping. Tapping is sometimes called emotional freedom technique, and there are a lot of great websites and videos devoted to tapping. I like to talk about it just in the space of working through triggers in your life. So I will invite you all to do this with me in this video. Maybe you're experiencing some sort of event and you become triggered. I want you, as the viewer, to sit and think about something that makes you feel bad, something that makes you feel triggered or something that reminds you of a traumatic event that happened to you. And where in your body do you feel that? Some people feel it in their shoulders, some people feel it in their throat, some people feel it in their heart, some people feel it in their tummy, some people feel it otherwise. But I want you to think about that traumatic feeling wherever it is that you feel it, and just go ahead and tap kind of bilaterally for a few minutes and feel that feeling in your body. And take a few deep breaths. And after you've done that for a while, you can actually bring your body back into awareness of that emotional event. And to help yourself get rid of the triggers or get over the triggers, you can again take that part of the body where you feel the pain or the emotional trauma, and this time you're going to think of something that is wonderful, healing, protective. Think of the trees or the beach or the ocean. Think of God or the angels. Think of whatever it is that is a protector for you. And take a few breaths just thinking about that protective energy. And then go ahead and tap that into your body again. And take a few deep breaths. So in doing that, you can actually rewire your brain and you can rewire your trauma response. So instead of getting triggered every time that you do something that's scary for you, you can eventually learn to work through this. If you are somebody who's experiencing post-trauma syndrome or post-traumatic stress, I really strongly recommend you find professional help. See a counselor or see some sort of doctor who can help you. Talk to somebody. That is the most important thing. But there are resources out there for you to get help. Don't get stuck in a trauma cycle. If you have any questions about this, please leave me a comment and I'll do my best to answer or find somebody who can help.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you like this video. Also, if you have any questions about holistic health, be sure to put those in the comments for me.